everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Stripped by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, and all the fancy naked people in between. I am your host, Steph Sia, aka Sia on Camera. I am a digital content creator, found on many different adult websites, as you may or may not know, such as OnlyFans, Streammate, Sex Panther. I want to say former-ish, semi-retired dancer at this point. I was formerly known as Kimchi on stage. I'm not sure what the hell's going on with my bookings anymore. I was supposed to be booked this month, but I am no longer doing that. So we shall see. Stay tuned on that. But I have been in the industry for over a decade now, starting off with my work as a sugar baby and then dabbling into stripping and then adult content creation. And I started this podcast, I guess, almost 5.5 years ago. Because, one, I wanted a connection with the sex work community because that was something I wasn't really getting a lot in person, and mainly to destigmatize the industry. After having conversations with so many people, I just felt like a lot of our work was really misunderstood. We carry a ton of weight and stigma in this industry, and I feel people just don't really understand what it is we do when they have a very stereotypical or sometimes negative view on what sex work is. So I bring on different guests onto the show every single week to talk about people's different corners and very different niches in the industry, and whether that is on-screen talent. We have other cam models like myself. We have people from nonprofit organizations that help advocate and fight for sex worker rights. Like, there's so many different perspectives that I want to try to include on this show. And one of them is like self-care, which I think is going to be like a really overarching theme of today's episode. We're going to be talking about authentic relating, different types of authentic relating. We're going to go into relatable focus. And if you don't know what that is, that's okay. We're going to go kind of right into it with our esteemed guest today, Diana Prince, who is a former dancer. She's been in the industry for over 20 years. She also dabbles in other adult ventures as well. And we're going to go kind of right into authentic relating. And we're actually going to give you guys a sneak peek of what that is. So for the next 12 minutes or so, we're just going to jump with both feet in. And I don't even really know what to expect. I'm just coming in with an open mind with this. But basically, we want to talk about authentic relating in terms of like how it can help you in your sex work journey, but also help yourself as a form of like self-care. Not even within this work, I feel like a lot of these practices can be applied to our personal lives outside of our work as sex workers. So I feel like we have like a lot of stuff to learn from here, and I'm super excited to kind of like dig into this with Diana. So I guess, Diana, I will let you take over at this point because, as I mentioned, I have no idea what's going on. I have like a little bit of idea, but I'm excited for you to kind of dive into this journey with me right now on the show, and I'm just gonna try to be vulnerable and open and honest with you. So take it away.
Okay, I'm hitting start on my timer, and the timer is going to go off at about 8 minutes so that I can tell you that we have about 2 minutes left. So it's going to be a 10-minute focus session for you. And what that means is you, as the focusee, you get to just be you. You don't have to do anything, or you could do whatever it is that you usually do, focusing on what it's like to be you right now in this moment, being here with me, with whatever, or just, it doesn't even have to be about being here with me, just whatever you're with, whatever is part of your experience. And my job as the facilitator is that I'm going to be focusing my attention on you and on being what it's like for me to be here with you. You're going to be like the object of my meditation, kind of like the flame on a candle. I'm focusing my attention on you and following my curiosity to perhaps go deeper into your experience as well. But before we start doing that, I like to take a moment to connect to self, and I invite you to do the same in whatever way feels right for you. For me, oftentimes it's closing my eyes and going a little bit internal, and then I focus on my internal experience. I'm noticing my voice and how fast I was just talking, and now I'm noticing that my voice is slowing down I'm noticing that I can feel my heart like beating through my chest. My armpits feel a little sweaty and my mouth feels a little dry. And what's alive for me right now is feeling tremendous gratitude. It feels surreal to be here with you right now. And I really, really want to get this right. I want to um, share the magic of the practice in a way that people can really feel the magic. I want to embody the practice. And I know it's a quick focus session. So, with that, I'm going to open my eyes and focus my attention back on being here with you. And whenever you're ready, you can share what it's like to be you right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was really nice to actually just take a minute to close my eyes with you at that time, and also just paying attention to what was happening with my body. So, like, my ears were starting to pulsate. I feel like my eyes were starting to kind of pulsate as well, like along with my heartbeat. I don't take a lot of time to pause in my day, which I know I'm terrible at. So it was really nice to even just have that moment there to like be silent and not trying to interject with you. And as an interviewer all the time, just knowing that I'm always talking, I'm always like on all the time. And same with my work as a sex worker, having to be on whatever the on button is for people is a lot. So I was thankful for just having silence, because that's something I kind of can struggle with sometimes. And I guess right now in the present, I'm focusing on you and this next hour, which is a lot of fun for me. And I'm curious to learn more and just have an open mind with you. I know that like a lot of sex workers, including myself, are spiritual people, and we have different definitions of what spirituality means to folks. So I'm looking forward to kind of like dabbling a little bit and just being present with you. Being present is hard, and I'm sure we'll talk about later in the interview, but now I feel like I'm rambling. But anyways, Diana, please.
My attention was mostly with, or I noticed when you said being on, that was so relatable, totally. And I am well aware that the camera is on us too, and that as
Yes.
much as we want to demo the practice, that it's the camera is still impacting my heart rate and my like being here with you. And so I think that that's where my focus is on a lot, and I'm imagining
Hmm.
that it'll be difficult going all the way there, like into the experience. But I was feeling. I think it's almost like I was feeling like a slowing down. But then when you mentioned the camera, I was like, oh yeah, we're here. And then I felt really excited when you mentioned spirituality because it is like a spiritual a spiritual practice for me as well.
Hmm.
What's it like to hear this reflection?
Oh, yeah, it's really refreshing. As I mentioned, like it's hard for me to take pauses and for me to slow down. So it's yeah, different. Different, refreshing, welcomed. Those are kind of words that are coming to my mind at this very moment, with that. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. It's I would like to emphasize, yeah, different, because it's not something I usually incorporate in my everyday life, whether it's in sex work or not. So and I guess curiosity is another word that's kind of popping out
And when you say
immediately
something you
after that.
incorporate, you're talking about like the slowing down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very guilty of that.
Yeah, that is a big part of the practice, like really slowing it way down. And I noticed myself wanting to get technical and wanting to explain, and but my attention is I'm bringing my attention back to you, and we'll save that for later.
Sure.
Um, I'm
Yeah.
imagining that there's like an impulse to fill all the silence.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm just like, no, like myself as a podcaster, I'm always kind of trained to kind of fill space with something, whether it's like a small talk thing or some kind of transitional moment. So it's like the weird urge and like the nervousness. I felt like butterflies in my stomach for a second. I'm just like, no, I need to pull back from that.
Sounds like
But
a lot
it's
of
it's
pressure.
hard. Yeah, it's a little bit of pressure for sure. I feel like, and even with the laughter, like that was a nervous laughter that came out. That was I laugh a lot in general, but like sometimes it can come out of nerves when not when I'm uncomfortable with a situation, but like maybe when I'm not in control of a situation
Mm.
or a conversation. So this is very strange, but in a good way. Being like impacted with and faced with mannerisms, I guess, that I do that I'm not fully aware of until now. If that makes any sense.
I felt almost like I don't believe you that you weren't aware of them or something like you were able to name them so easily. Like I'm imagining that you are very aware.
Well, maybe very aware, but maybe that's the wrong way of putting it. But maybe aware of things, but I ignore them.
Yeah, like they're still
Maybe that's
sitting
a better
in
way.
places. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense. I think I'm also feeling like the impulse to fill in the silence because we're being recorded, but I wonder
well, it's
how.
interesting with the camera though too, and what the role the camera plays, and also like with this big ring light also being in my face, like you are on.
Yeah, totally. Well, that was the 2 minute mark, so we have
No.
two minutes left, and man, I'm with feelings of like, oh, I really want to like slow down and do like an actual session where there isn't the pressure to fill in the silence, and I really want to get to know you in the like in the silence too. I want to know what it's like to be in silence with you too.
Me too. I just feel like I'm very vulnerable in silent areas. Like silence doesn't happen to me often. I find silence happens to me when I'm tired and exhausted, when I'm burnt out, when I'm overstimulated, when I have too many things going on and I'm overworked. Those are usually times when I am silent and I don't even want anyone talking to me and I just want like veg.
Mm.
But they're rare times though.
So the next timer is about to go off, but in this brief session, we talked about what it's like to feel this like impulse to fill in all the silence, and then like what it's like to always be on, and then like noticing that the camera is on us, and then there was like a desire for, or I don't know if you said a desire. There was an implied. I took it. Maybe it's a story that I created, like a
Mm.
welcoming of the slowing down and talking about maybe a desire for more silence and more slowing down.
Hmm. Yeah, like a curiosity to explore. I think so.
And that's it. That was the 10-minute mark. So,
Wow.
and that is a focus session.
Very cool. Oh my gosh, I'm sad that that ended because I would have loved to dive deeper with you on that and also just like get out of my comfort zone even more. But folks listening, if you're intrigued, I mean, we are going to be talking about this practices over the next hour with Diana Prince, who is our lovely guest for today. Diana, I did a really, really brief introduction of you. But of course, as you know, I would love to throw it back to you and give yourself the opportunity to describe yourself in your own words and terms.
Okay. I've been in the adult entertainment industry for 20 years, mostly dancing. I have dabbled in a few other things. I've done OnlyFans. I've done the phone sex operation, and I'm also a companion.
Wow,
And
that's amazing.
more recently, the thing that I'm the most passionate about is bringing these practices of relateful, authentic relating, circling. Nonviolent communication is another word for the types of practices that we do. IFS, internal family systems, is one that I'm in training for right now, and I'm sharing these practices with the adult industry right now.
I love that. And we definitely need this kind of communication, these kind of practices in the work that we do within this highly stigmatized industry. I feel like we can all benefit from it. And I know we're definitely going to go into, why this is important and why it's good to get like touch in with ourselves like this, and even have a facilitator like yourself to help us navigate these practices. We are going to get into all of those details because there's going to be a lot of conversations that stem out of that. But going back to you and like your origin story, did you want to tell the audience a little bit? I know you said you've been dancing in the industry for like a long time and now dabbling into other ventures, which is really exciting and transitioning. But maybe if you wanted to walk us through the very beginning or wherever you want to start, wherever your beginning is, and take us through to how you even got to where you are today in terms of like being a facilitator for authentic relating.
Yeah, there's so many different places of where to start the story that sometimes it's like, is that the beginning or did it start before that? I guess one of the places I noticed myself wanting to go, or like going, that there's two possible directions. There's the just starting with the dancing and then going with the, like I could do the really vulnerable, deep thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Whatever you're comfortable with.
yeah, totally. I'm doing the practice right now by like naming them. So that's one of the things that we do, is that sometimes we can name the meta level thing without naming the actual thing. So this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of a side note, but it's a good place to like talk about this, that I've actually in the practice shared with people that are just part of the like circling community and not part of the adult industry. Like I've said, I
Mm-hmm.
have a secret that I've been holding for 20 years and I'm starting to tell people about it. And instead of like asking me, well,
Mm.
what's the secret? They'll say, well, what's it like to start telling people? And we'll have like a whole 1 hour conversation about a secret that I have without actually naming the secret. And so there's like a
No.
lot of like processing and connection that can be done at whatever layer somebody is at. So I guess I was kind of like
Wow.
modeling like that my mind is going back to this place and what's it like to be there. And I could talk about that without having to like actually reveal the thing. But as I'm doing the
Mm-hmm.
practice, I am like settling more in my body, and there is like more of a yes, more of a yeah, go ahead and say it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a former teen mom. I had my daughter when I was 15, and so I entered the industry, and like a lot of people do, out of necessity. So out of
Mm-hmm.
necessity, I was in the AOL chat rooms, finding people to meet with. I guess you could
Mm.
say kind of a sugar baby experience, but definitely. Uh, I noticed that it's like, yeah, it wasn't a very good experience, which
Mm.
is part of why I
Mm-hmm.
want to build community, because when somebody's doing it all alone, I mean, I definitely don't want somebody that's that young to be doing this, but just in general, even when it's an adult trying to enter the industry, like to try to figure it
Mm-hmm.
out all by yourself is just so hard.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes, it
I
is.
I entered a long time ago as a teen mom, and then I joined the Air Force. And then after I did my time in the Air Force, I got out and I decided to start dancing in El Paso, and then I danced for 20 years, and then more recently I started. It started shifting the vibe in the club. I don't know if you felt
Mm-hmm.
that shift.
I feel it now, which I haven't. That's another reason, like, why I haven't really been dancing a lot in the past couple of years, and it's like getting less and less. Partially my choice, but also out of my hands too. But yeah, it's not a good place for me right now. It's like very toxic, at least where I'm dancing. Not with the girls themselves, but like with the agency that we have to be a part of in order to be a feature dancer. it's just like really tough out there. And the, the reason they're like, oh, you're not getting bookings, like it's because of the economy. And like, it's not just because of the economy. You keep booking the same girls, and like I'm getting aged out and all this stuff. But that's an episode for another time. So the focus is on you, Diana. Go back to you.
Um, it caught my attention when you said aged out, because that's a story that I always had, that like that there's only a certain time limit in the industry, but I guess I'm learning that that there isn't a time limit, and that there's always yeah, I guess that's one of the shifts. So one of the shifts that I had seen in the club was when I first started dancing. People would say they thought that they were there for a dance, but what they really wanted was connection, and they wanted to feel seen, heard, and understood. And so I would meet with people that um, like before long they would say, I don't even want to dance anymore, I want to pay you to sit here and just talk to me all night. And so talking to people and holding space for people has always been my bread and butter. But like, I guess, I don't know, it's been an ongoing shift. But more so recently, it just seems like the type of people that I was really connecting with at the club aren't, that the guys, they're not there anymore. They're going somewhere else. So now I'm finding a
Yeah.
deeper level connection that I was wanting outside of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard. I feel similarly. Yeah, like I just feel like people are getting priced out of clubs right now with the economy, like not being able to afford dances anymore. And obviously, like that being the biggest money making part of our job, it's been really challenging. And also, even though like a lot of my work is small talk, I just felt like none of this stuff was genuine, at least in the strip club environment. um I feel like I could be a bit more myself when I'm camming and when I'm sexting. Like I can have more of my personality show in certain aspects. Like, of course you're gonna have people that are like just wanting to get off and stuff. Obviously that's what they're there for. But like for me, like part of my branding, but also just part of myself and self fulfillment is like actually really being myself, whether like it is online or in person or whatever. Like I want people to be attracted to that, and that's sometimes not it at the club.
Yeah, that's so important. That's the thing that makes it sustainable. Like, it's not sustainable. I don't think it's sustainable. At least for me, it's not to be inauthentic to who I am. And yeah, the more that
Yeah, it's
I
exhausting.
figure out who I am, and act more in alignment, the more that it actually attracts more people to me that like
Hmm.
that, and then it turns out to be like a nourishing connection that is far more sustainable than the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is that like a reason why you started transitioning out a little bit too? I mean, you said some of the people that you were connecting with before were no longer there, or maybe they're not coming back to the club anymore. So is that like kind of why you started dabbling in other ventures in the past couple years?
Yeah, totally. It just it feels like I would rather have like longer amounts of time with people, and like with dancing. Also the drinking too. The drinking was getting
Yeah.
like, it's like I could see people independently, and we don't have to drink, and we could still have a great time. Where in the
Hmm.
club it seems like that's really prevalent, and
Forced
actually it
sometimes.
seems almost like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's like such a pressure to drink. Yeah, not
Hmm.
only from the club, because the club wants you to buy the drinks, but also
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, I need this drink to be able to put up with this person.
Right? No, that's the common theme that I hear. Like, not sometimes, yeah, amongst my peers, like the pressure that they need to have a drink or to party with them. And for me, I just, for a long time, for most of my dancing career, I've been doing it sober, and like hearing the black and white with dancing sober, and also just having to need some kind of substance to get you by. Like a lot of the girls I dance with, they're always high, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I dabble with weed and stuff too, like in my personal life, but not when I'm dancing. But like I think this relates so much to like our conversation today in terms of like being present, and a lot of people find it harder to face the music when you're sober. um and a lot of people are just kind of like greened out by weed or by alcohol or whatever cocaine party drugs that they're doing, they're actually not there anymore. That yeah.
Yeah,
Does that make
totally.
sense? Is that relatable?
And my mind is kind of going into the direction of like coping strategies to avoid being in the present moment, and how
Yes.
um like something that I've learned about myself and about a lot of people in general, like almost everybody I know really, is
Mm-hmm.
that we have such a tendency to like try to change the experience to try to avoid. And one of the main coping strategies is to be in mental loops, thinking about something and trying to figure it out, and like retelling the story because you're trying to figure out something about the
Mm.
story. But that's actually just a coping strategy to try to avoid feeling what you're feeling in the body. And one of the things that this practice teaches is that, like, if you actually feel the things, if you look at them, if you actually look at them, they will shift. Like, it's one of those, like
Mm.
a scientific principle, right? That whatever you look at, it'll shift. The same thing with the
Mm-hmm.
feelings and the emotions, that we typically spend so much time trying to figure something out. But that's a coping strategy to not feel. And then by avoiding or suppressing, we're actually like prolonging our own suffering. But when we actually take a
Mm.
moment to look at it, then something shifts. And then there's like further like skills too, like with IFS, instead of saying I feel, I have a story and I have a desire, it's a part of me has a feeling, a story, and a desire. And then there's some separation. When we call it just a part of us, then there's some separation. And it really makes it so
Mm.
that we can hold things a lot differently.
Yeah. Is that like similar to like compartmentalization, or can it be seen as like that, or something completely? Is that something completely different than that?
Is it compartmentalization?
Because there's still that separation, and you're like kind of putting things into little boxes, and like at least that's the way that I'm thinking about it in my brain. Like that's if you're putting things away and tucking things away, you don't have to give energy to that. Sometimes you can give energy to other boxes that are open that you choose to open, and I don't
Well,
know.
I
Maybe
guess
we're going on a
when you
yeah,
say
I don't
the word
know.
compartmentalization, it makes me think of the word integration, and about how like we're
Mm,
actually taking the time to look at the specific part and like ask the part, like we're taking the time to be with the part and ask that part, what does it actually need? And then like once the part has been like seen, heard, and understood, then there's like more space between that part and us. But it's like there's this it's not fully. So I guess in some ways it's like maybe there's a maybe it's not quite compartmentalization, but there is
mm,
separation of the parts where it's not fully blended with us. Because when a part is fully like blended with us, then I am sad instead of like this part of me is sad. Or
mm.
yeah.
I'm loving these tangents, by the way. These are so great. I love how we're just like really just digging deep into everything. It's so welcomed. It's so welcomed. And I'm sure a lot of listeners are appreciating this too. Before we kind of go forward, Dan, I feel it's fair to the audience to kind of like maybe define, I feel like because we just jumped right into it, define like what authentic relating is, like what the purpose of it is, and or at least what the purpose of it would be for you as a facilitator. I'd love to.
Yeah.
Sorry, audience members. We should have started there, but I'm already like intrigued. I'm like I'm invested already. So, but maybe we can start off with that
Yeah,
and kind of
totally.
defining what that is.
Authentic relating is a relational meditative practice where we practice being really focused on what it's like to be in the present moment, usually being here with each other. And authentic relating is the one that, in my mind, most people are the most familiar with. But then sometimes people will say, I've never heard of any of them. But they're all slightly different flavors of the same thing. The one that's the easiest for me to explain is there's one that's called T group. And T group is the T stands for training. It used to be a sensitivity training course at the Stanford School of Business so that CEOs could talk to their employees. So it's an HR tool, it's an HR communication tool. Sorry, like I guess my mind is kind of like many tangents, but they are
No, I
related.
love
But
it.
so the way that yoga that people will go to yoga for lots of different reasons. People
Hmm.
will go to this practice for lots of different reasons. One of them will be for to improve their communication skills. Another reason would be for socialization, for community, for entertainment too. And also, the more that I do this practice, the more that it becomes kind of like a spiritual practice, that doing the practice in itself reveals new wisdoms that never would have emerged on their own if I hadn't been doing the practice.
No, that's a really, really great way of putting it. I think that's actually really, really cool too, and it makes a lot of sense as well. Um, I like what you said in terms of like this is done in order for people to be present, because I feel like a lot of people are not present. Um, at least that's in my own experience, like especially with like technology and being on the phone and be connected, there's always like someone doing something, they're on their phone and half listening, and I'm just like, are you listening to me? I'm trying to make eye contact with you and you giving you my time, and I feel like sometimes people are not giving the same amount of presence back, and it can be really exhausting when it happens. I mean, what has been your experience with that? Especially in sex work,
The
or
thing that
even
I'm
or not in
with is
sex work, who knows?
how sometimes it can be like kind of tricky to define like what is the present moment. And one of the things that this practice teaches is that the body is the portal to the present moment. And so oftentimes we're, how I was saying earlier, like stuck in story, but story is oftentimes in the past. And so the way that we bring it back to the present moment is by quickly naming the story. Like we often think that somebody, for somebody to get to know us and for us to feel a connection with somebody, we have to tell them our whole life story for them to really know us. So that's the habitual way of relating. But this the more that I do the practice, the more that it's evident that I could summarize my whole life story really in 2 sentences and then talk about what I feel now. Talk about what I feel now about my experience dancing for 20 years, or my experience being a single mom, a single teen mom, or whatever. Like I don't have to tell the details of, the clubs that I worked at, the cities that I worked at. I could just, in 2 sentences, summarize the story of dancing for 20 years and then talk about what it's like now, what is coming up for me now in the present moment, in my body sensations and my feelings. And so it is really hard. It's really hard to actually name the feelings. Oh man, I do video stuff in a different room, and I have this feelings pillow that has like
Oh,
a
cool.
diagram of like a whole bunch of feelings. And sometimes when I do these practices, people will like point to their little look at their little feeling wheel, because sometimes people only know it feels good or it feels bad, and that's it. They don't really have that much of a variation of like naming their actual feelings. And and especially
Mm-hmm.
when somebody is like being stressed, feeling like a lot of stress in their lives, like it's hard, it's even harder to name the stories too,
Yeah,
to name the feeling.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know, I got you.
Hi, it's Carly David, founder of PS Group, marketing agency for sex workers by sex workers. We're here to give you the tools you need to stand out. From slick websites to next level marketing strategies, we want to turn your fans into loyal customers. Our fees are project based, no commissions, no percentages. We believe you should keep the rewards of your hard work. So if you're serious about taking your brand to the next level, visit us at sexworkmarketing.com. Say hello. We'd love to talk to you.
I mean, like talking about like authentic relating, you mentioned there were several different kinds of practices. Maybe you want to go into a few, or I don't know how many there are, but like I'd love to learn more about like what that looks like and what they are.
Yeah, so the easiest one for me to explain is T group, and the main thing that we do in T group is that we're working on 4 skills. Those 4 skills are revealing our experience, sharing impact, and owning assumptions and desires. And the way that we do that is through using sentence stems. The sentence stems that we use are some variation of I feel, I notice, I have a desire, and I have a story. Is this too technical, or is this kind of where?
No, I love this nerdy stuff, so please keep going.
Okay, cool, cool.
I love
So,
details.
I feel is what's going on in your body sensations or in your emotions. So it could be like I feel my armpits feel sweaty, or it could be I feel nervous at being here with you. Um, I notice that I'm talking really fast, or it could be like I notice you're focusing your attention on me, and I notice that you're nodding. Sharing impact is saying how the impact that your actions and words are having on me. So like seeing you nod, I feel like you're with me. I feel connected. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining that you're like uh, the word that's coming up is like validating, even though you're not like validating, but yeah, I feel it feels good. Like I just said, it's
Yeah.
hard to name the feeling. So that's sharing the impact that others' actions and words are having us on us. And then owning our assumptions is arguably one of the most powerful parts of the practice, because so oftentimes we create a story in our head and we walk around acting like it's the truth, not checking in with somebody to see if that's really true or not, and not giving the opportunity for the
Mm-hmm.
story to be updated. And so part of this practice is um, the sentence stem for that is either I'm imagining or I have a story that. And the reason that we say I have a story is because then it makes it a lot easier for you. I'm not accusing you of doing something. I'm just owning that I. So first of all, they all start with I.
Yeah.
That I created a story in my head, and then I'm revealing my story to see if it checks out with you. And so some examples of that might be like I'm not I'll say I'll just make something up because it's kind of hard to sometimes to think of something in the moment, but which
Sure.
is why we slow it down so much. So I might say
Yes.
something like I'm imagining that you're really bored right now. And so then that's an opportunity for you to
Mm.
say, no, actually, this is really interesting. Or, yeah, actually, like, let me redirect the conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
naming our assumptions is a way of usually we would keep that hidden because we don't want to hurt
Mm-hmm.
somebody's feelings or we don't want to trigger them. But saying like taking ownership that I've created this story is a way of saying it in a way that allows you to hold it lightly and brings something back into connection. So it could be about myself or it could be about other people. So I used to have a story that maybe I used to have a story that people don't like me or something like that. And then when I would say I have a story that nobody likes me, then people would be like, I missed you last week and I was really looking for you, or something like that. Or
Mm.
the one that's, well, I'll come back to give like an example that really ties them all together in a way that is really clear. The last
Sure.
part that we're working on is owning our desires.
Mm-hmm.
So that one is a really powerful practice too. It's mind blowing how easy it is to get our desires fulfilled if we just name them. So oftentimes, as sex workers, we're like plotting how to get that money. But little do we
Mm-hmm.
know that if we just say, like I've done it before, where I said, I have a desire to receive money from the masculine, and I've had men say, I have money and I have desire to give it to you. Um, so it really is this, like sometimes people even joke that the T stands for tantra because you could use this skill in the bedroom. Like instead of trying to get somebody to
Right.
do what you want, like if you just name I have a desire without the expectation that somebody will fulfill it, oftentimes they want to fulfill it.
Wow.
Um,
That's
and
really
so
cool.
another like thing that this practice points to is separating the objective facts, because we have hand movements too that we use.
Okay.
We say headline and we go like this, and then we say the objective facts. So those will be things like grass is green, or there's 2 people on this call, or things that everybody could agree on, things that are like objective. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have a story of something that I created, and then there's also feelings and desires. But separating the story from the feelings and the desires has just been so powerful, because then, like, it's even like, um, another thing that is easy to notice, like when you do this practice, then you take the practice outside into the real world, is how often people will say, I feel like, and then whatever they say after like isn't a feeling at all. It's a story, but we're taught to respect somebody's feelings. So if it's like,
Mm,
um, I feel like you're judging me. Well, that's a story that I
that
created in my
story.
head. That, what does that feel like?
Right.
It would be more honest to say, I have a story that you're judging me. And then we could talk about, well, how did I come to that conclusion? And then what does that feel like holding that story? I could feel proud that I'm being judged and I'm really confident in my skill, or I could feel um, inferior, or I could feel indifferent. I could just not care about your judgment at all. But we're able to
Right.
like name the different things. And that's been like a really powerful way to like hold things different.
Yeah, I mean, like for those that you facilitate with, like, has it been challenging for them to, find these words, find the feelings, and get these things kind of right? Because it sounds like it can be kind of convoluted or can be confused with feelings versus stories versus etc. Like, I mean,
It's a practice, and
yeah,
sometimes it can be tedious, just like going to yoga practice sometimes is uncomfortable. And sometimes people will say, I have a desire to burn down the practice, or I have a desire to get out of format, because it really slows down the conversation intentionally. Like, it makes it so that
mm,
instead of saying like a paragraph long thing, well, how can I in 4 sentences say everything? So here's a really good example to tie it all
mm,
together. I might show up and say, I feel frustrated. And people are like, why is she frustrated? I don't know. And then I'll say, I have a story that Austin
mm.
drivers are terrible drivers. But that's a story because somebody else might say, well, actually, I have a story that you're the one that's a terrible driver. Um, and then the headline is that I got into a car accident on the way here. And then the
Mm,
feelings could be, like I said, feel frustrated. I have a fear of calling my insurance agent, and my desire is for my partner to take care of the insurance policy. But that's like in
mm.
4 sentences, I've said a whole lot, where in a usual conversation, people would describe what intersection they were at, what direction they
Right.
were turning, what color the car was, and really get into the details of the story and whose fault it was and that kind of thing. But in 4 sentences, I've just said like a whole lot. And then people will
Summarized.
actually, oftentimes they'll say like, I feel care, I feel compassion. And
Mm.
then,
This is cool. Sorry. I'm like, this is such a great way of summarizing things because I think I'm so guilty of like, running around and saying a lot of stuff and just providing way too much detail. And then you're like, what was the point? Like, what was the what was the headline, right?
mhm.
Like, what happened to you?
We
So it's
actually
really
have a
interesting.
hand movement that's like, bring it to a point. What is the essence of what you're trying to tell me? What is the feeling behind all that story that you just said?
This is
Because
a
so
really good tool for
oftentimes
public
people will get long
speaking.
winded. Huh?
Yes, this is such a good tool for public speaking. Like, so good. I mean, like going back to like a sex worker lens and a sex worker focus, like how can practices like this help folks with their work or with communication, or like how would you kind of describe it in terms of like how this is beneficial?
One of the main things that comes to mind is about boundaries. That boundaries can be so fluid. The boundary that my boundaries aren't the same from one day to the next. They really depend on how many hours I've been at the club, how much I've had to
Mm,
drink, how many people are at the club,
hmm.
how hot the guy in front of me is, how much money he has, how many times I've seen him. And it might be the same guy, and I might feel differently from one week to the next. And so they're like, my boundaries they just are in our industry. They just are fluid, and not it's not a solid line all the time. But
Hmm.
what sometimes happens is that we think things are okay, or at least this was my experience, not just in the industry, but in a lot of places, that I would think that something was okay. And then the next day I would realize, like that, I don't feel good about that thing that happened yesterday. And it would be the next day that I would reflect back and something didn't feel right. But now this practice really has given me a lot of practice in like noticing what I feel right now in the present moment. So there's been days where like I have one example where I was at a Christmas party. So this is like a private thing, but I could so see this kind of thing happening in the club. But
Sure.
there was somebody that I was talking to, and he was giving me such mixed signals, and I couldn't tell if he wanted connection or not. And so I named those things. I feel confused. What you're saying is that you're saying things that imply that you don't want connection, but you're like smiling really big and you keep coming closer. So I don't know if you do or
Mm.
don't want connection. And then I was kind of like starting to get this like funny feeling in me. And I wasn't quite ready to name it, but then he reaches over and he like touches me like just on my arm, and then I smiled really big and I was able to name, that's interesting. I noticed that I'm smiling really big, like everything's okay, but actually like I'm
Mhm.
fawning. I'm fawning, acting like everything is okay, because this is really surprising that you're reaching out and touching me right now after you've just been so confusing. And I tried to ask you
Mhm.
clarifying questions to see if you do or don't want connection, and you're still unable to answer them. And so I'm still in the confusion. And then you reach out and touch me. This was really like confusing and shocking, and I'm fawning. Um,
Right.
and so I was able to like name what's going on for me right now in the present moment. And then he gave me feedback where then he the way that he responded was, oh, well, then if you don't like it and you're scared, then don't be in connection with me. And I said, well, I'm not scared, but yeah, now given your response, now I know for sure that I
Yeah.
don't want to be in connection anymore.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's really great. Such a good way of, yeah, noticing what your boundaries are and recognizing them. Because sometimes I feel with our work, we are on the defensive sometimes in terms of like protecting us for our safety. And that's where, walking the line and towing on the boundaries can be a little bit dangerous and risky if you're not attuned to what your boundaries are. So this is actually a really good practice for recognizing that, and you know, especially in your story, you made it sound so solid there too. Especially after his reaction, you're like, oh, this is not something I want to pursue.
And even like naming being defensive, like there's been times where like even in conversation where I'm okay, here's an example that somebody I'm kind of like, this is a different example, but this is one way in which the practice has been useful to somebody. um Somebody was, I'm noticing like a lack of confidence of like, I don't know if this will illustrate the point right or not.
That's okay.
Okay.
Go for
Somebody
it.
was saying that they advertise as BBW, and somebody was asking questions about how much they weigh. And so my suggestion was to do the call live. And so, okay, so here's what I wanted to say about the practice. That some of these practices, something that I've learned about these practices is that like I can be with somebody and get a lot of information without ever answering any question. So
Hmm.
my suggestion to her was to get on the call live and say, I'm curious about your curiosity. What's your motivation behind that question? What is knowing that
Yeah.
question, the answer to that question, going to do for you? And then to
Hmm.
say, well, we're here now and you can see me now. What's it like for you to be with me now? And so if they
Hmm.
say like, oh, I feel blah or whatever, or if they say, oh, great, like I want to, well, then you just got information about whether you want to move forward or not without having to disclose anything that you don't want to say to them.
Right. No, this this is illustrated well. No, this is totally fine. I think that's really great too. And even talking amongst with like sex worker to client relations, but even talking from sex worker to sex worker as well, because we all know like the whorephobia is like alive and well, and I feel like these authentic relating practices can also help communicate that without giving so much. And that's something that I have like personally, I think that can actually help me a lot too. Like for example, I like had someone, in my opinion, look like, I mean, I have a story. Like this person in the industry came at me, and that's also maybe bringing bias into the story too, but like had made some comments about something that I had did, and they were kind of questioning and checking my, or trying to like validate and measure how much of a sex worker I was. It's like, oh, I thought you were retired. I'm like, what does that mean? Anything if I'm retired or not from dancing? Like, what, who are you to measure that? And I felt really frustrated and attacked by it. And basically I was not happy with how this person was policing
Mm.
another sex worker, aka myself. It was really upsetting. um wow, I really need to practice on this because I feel like I'm going long-winded again. I'm like trying to instill the practices that you're telling me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to summarize a bit more faster, but it's difficult sometimes for me to do that.
Oh, I
I'm
feel
trying
like I
to
was getting
really
so long-winded, but hearing your story, I was imagining how to implement and like what and to like name, like hearing your question, I feel cautious and I feel unsure and I don't like something in my body is saying like no, I don't want to answer this. What's it like to hear this or something like that?
Yeah, because like I was put in that position where I didn't want to have to answer to her because I feel like why should I answer to you and who are you and stuff, and why do I have to explain myself in terms and like for you to measure how much of a sex worker I am or not.
Hmm.
um I would love to dive into more practices that like can help me not carry that much weight because it's really tiring. And I'm sure people listening might have had some relations like this as well, unfortunately, from other sex workers too within our community. But sorry to go on a tangent there, but I just that just stuck with me. I just felt compelled to share that with you and trying to relate some of our conversation to real life examples that I'm going through right now. So yeah, sorry for the tangent.
No, this is so welcome and so like totally in alignment with that. This practice has been so good for having difficult conversations. In fact, that's one of the things that I really value about Relateful is witnessing conflict. Like my usual way of dealing with conflict would be to ignore, avoid, and run away, and that's the only way I've ever known to do conflict. And in the Relateful practice, I so often will see people be in conflict and remain in connection and still like yeah be able to voice their differences and to like it's so empowering to say to hear somebody like say like I have a story that you're policing me and being with that I feel really guarded and it makes me want I want to move away and I don't it makes me not want connection with you anymore.
That's exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you. I was like timing myself. Like that was like 5 minutes of me trying to explain. I mean, dealing with conversations in terms of like conflict and difficult conversations, when you are responding to people and they're not then receiving it in a way that you feel safe, how do you then respond or continue on with conversations? And how do you navigate those relationships when you have to work with a certain person or be in the same space? How do you deal with conflict that way? Is it like more of it's a one-sided thing then? Or
I'm trying to think of like examples to speak from, and I remember. Well, I guess this is a different question, but the way in which my mind goes to Okay.
That's okay.
Let me think. I'm trying to think.
However you've received the question, I'd love to hear like whatever your answer is. So, yeah, don't hesitate.
Well, I don't think it is the same thing at all, but I'll go ahead and say the thing that I was with, and then maybe we could come back to what you actually asked. But somebody had asked me
Sure.
once about money and about how like we believe that we have to allow our boundaries to be shifted, otherwise it'll cost us money. Like if we don't allow somebody to
Mm.
touch or something, then we're going to lose money. And my experience has been that if I reveal what I'm experiencing, if I say like, I want more slowness. This is like this momentum is like really fast and it feels scary for me, and I want more slowness. In my experience, people have the guys that I sit with will receive it as an opportunity to like hold space for me, and they actually do like kind of back up, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, and they are like more a certain way. But more so, this is the shift that I've been seeing at the club, is that it's a different kind of guy. And because so the question was like, has it ever not worked for you? And I was thinking,
Mhm.
well, it always works. Like as a companion, it has always worked. But where it didn't work as much was in the club. In the club,
Mhm.
then people would like, maybe that's what part of what I was saying was they weren't valuing this like level of way of connecting or something. And so
Mhm.
what I said was that like I have a story that if I'm wasting time sitting with this guy that's actually making me mad, now when the whale that I do want to sit with comes in through the door, I'm gonna be so pissed that I can't even sit with him. He's not like, my energy isn't going to be in alignment with his vibrational frequency, and so I'm missing out on money
Right.
by being with this jerk that's pushing my boundaries. That's what's messing up my money. And
Yeah.
so that's so something else that I've gained from this practice is like, I know I am well aware of like that's not the experience of everybody, and that's like a very privileged like experience to have, to say like, well, I don't
Mhm.
need that money. But
Mhm.
like for a while I had to go to the club because I wasn't making enough money as a companion. And then I started
Mhm.
thinking like I've just like wisdoms bubble up, and one of them was about, what if that's not how reality works, and what if reality works in a way where the more that I do the things that, the more that I follow my yes and my no in my body, and I do the things like, now I can know like the yes is like expansive, and it feels like I feel more in my body and I feel bigger and I want to stand up straight, and the no feels kind of like contracted, and it feels like I feel like a sickness in my stomach and less in my body and more like in my
Mhm.
head. When I listen to
Mhm.
those cues, like the money has started flowing. And so there's this like spirituality thing that it's almost, I almost feel, as I'm trying to explain it, I feel this frustration, like I don't even, can't really explain it. I just have a knowing that 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 the more that I do these practices, and that I find, the more that I find my truth and act in alignment with my truth and my authenticity, the more that everything flows, the money will flow, and the more that I have trust that I am on the right path, and that this is the way, and that other way was like hurting my money and hurting my being, my soul, and like making it so that I couldn't be in alignment with the people that I actually want to connect with.
Yeah. No, this makes a lot of sense for sure. I feel like a lot of people can certainly benefit from this, whether or not you are in sex work. Actually, I think it's just in an umbrella term, like a really great communication tool. Really, really, really great communication tool for you to summarize and just clarify your points and just be clear with what you're trying to portray. I think this is so important for, I mean, especially for sex workers, because you're talking with people all the time. You're connecting with people all the time. People want human interaction, they want presence. Um, and this can be really key. You have something to say?
I'm still thinking about the safety
Yeah,
question, and I guess it
sure.
does. It kind of has worked on a safety, like in terms of like with people that might be like dangerous or violent or something like that. I mean, I haven't. So what I have experienced is like, then sometimes I'll have an uneasy feeling about somebody, and then I'll say, "Hey, can we get on the phone?" And then as I get on the phone, I'll actually like feel something. something that will either be a yes or a no, and then I just have to like trust and move forward with the no, and then I can communicate, like I said, like there's multiple layers. There's multiple layers where I can still um, like tell the truth, but I don't have to tell them like, hearing what you said, I feel anger and disgust towards you. I could just say, there's something in my body that just says no.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's different ways of like phrasing things as well and communicating that too. I mean, go back to you and your job as a facilitator, your role as a facilitator. I know that you offer sessions for sex workers and allies. You also mentioned earlier in the show that you offer sessions as well for those of, I guess, of the general public. For those who are interested, like, what can I know we went through a focusing session earlier on today, but if folks want to join in on these sessions, what can they expect? How often is this? Where can we find you? All that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I have a signal group where I'll meet people like on Twitter that are interested, and they'll message me, and then I'll send them, if they're like, I vet them, like if their Twitter looks like they're active and they've been putting in the work, to like, a random person wouldn't put in this much work. If I can tell that they're a sex worker, then I'll send them the link to the signal group. And then in the signal group is where I announce if there's any time changes or anything like that. But usually right now we've been meeting Monday through Friday at 9:30 Central Time. And then I'll post the Zoom link in there, and then we all jump on the call. And then there's no agenda. We just show up with whatever we're with. And the main goal is to talk about what it's like to be here with each other. But one of the things that I was mentioning earlier is that sometimes that's tricky, staying in the present moment, because something that happened 2 hours or 2 days ago is still with us. So we actually do name the thing, like, I'm feeling angry because I got a counterfeit dollar bill from somebody 3 days ago. My story is that he knew. And then somebody else will say, well, I have a story that it's possible that he didn't know, because I'm remembering time when I paid my neighbor with a counterfeit dollar bill because I didn't know. And then I checked with my
Yeah.
client, and he said he didn't know, and he reimbursed the money. So we do bring in story, just because, I don't know, that's the way that the group is. So we do talk about things that are happening in the industry, but we also talk about what's going on here between us, and then also what's going on in our relationships, and like in our regular everyday life.
Yeah. And these are an hour a session long,
Yeah.
I guess, every week. Yeah. I mean, we had something a one-on-one and at the top of this episode. How would that kind of differ from like a group session? So I would imagine it's a little bit different.
Yeah. So with T group, the energy just flows popcorn style wherever it goes, and it might stay with one person, and we might be with that certain person for a certain amount of time. And then right now, actually this Wednesday, we're going to have our first group focus session. So we're gonna focus. It'll probably be like a group of 5 people, and I'll say what 3 people want to get focused. 3 people will get focused, and then we'll be with each person for like maybe 15 minutes each, and then I'll be focusing my attention on being with them and in their experience, and taking them deeper into their experience. And so it's okay for us to mention a little bit about what's coming up for us as we're focusing on the other, but really, instead of taking the attention back to my story, I'll be like, name my story really quickly and be like, what's it like for you to hear that story? Or, yeah, what's it like sharing this with us? Has it shifted
Yeah.
any now since you started the focus session?
So cool. And another question too, sorry. With the sessions that are focused with sex workers and allies, is that very different than what you offer to like normie civvy people, or similar but not?
As far as like sex workers and allies, I was doing like just public calls on Twitter, but I
Mhm.
kind of moved them to just people in the industry on Signal. So I don't do the combined. I haven't been doing the combined as much. With the mainstream group, yeah, it's pretty much the same. Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same thing, just whatever's alive.
That's really, really cool. I mean, for folks, if you guys have been listening religiously every single week, you will know that Diana is a sponsor, has been a sponsor since January, a sponsored ad for the show. We also have another ad coming up for her next month as well. I mean, if you are interested, and I highly recommend maybe everyone joining in, or if you're curious about it, Diana, do you want to plug? I know you mentioned like it's every Wednesday and stuff like that, but like, how do we get in contact with you? Where can we find you? All of the things. I think now's a good time to kind of plug those links.
Yeah. So the bit.ly link. Now I'm looking at it and I'm like, is it incomplete? I wrote down bit.ly/SW authentic relating. That should take you to my mini website that I've been working on. And then for Twitter, it's at SW Authrel, SWAUTHREL. And then the email address would be relatingarts@gmail.com for now.
Amazing. And we have all of those links in the show notes below. So if you haven't clicked over there, maybe now is a good opportunity for you to do so, because I'm sure Diana would love to host you in one of these sessions. I mean, I wish we had more time earlier on with the focus session early on the show. That was really a different experience I've never had before. So thank you for that. And also thank you, Diana, for your time today and just your expertise on authentic relating in general. I think this is a really great tool that a lot of sex workers can potentially benefit from, and not you don't even have to be a sex worker to enjoy this and to utilize this tool. So thank you for opening my audience up to this, and I hope to see you in some sessions in the future for sure.
Yeah, I would love that for sure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And for everyone else listening at home, if you're enjoying your weekly episodes, your free weekly resources from me, thank you, first of all, for being a listener. But also, if you love the show and you want more episodes, please go ahead and check out I guess rate 5 stars, review Spotify, Apple. That's your homework. If you like more of this and like want more bonus episodes, I forgot to plug it earlier, but I do have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/strippedbysia. And I totally forgot to shout out all the people on there, but I'll do a quick little shout out now. Snoo Geyser, Eric Raho, B. York, McKenna King, Retro Products, Dale Flood, Raina, Ruby, and all the others that are on the first and second tiers. Thank you so much. And if you want to get in touch with myself, it's Stripped by Sia on X and Blue Sky, as well as Stripped by Sia podcast on Instagram. And if you were interested in coming onto the show as a guest, I'd love to hear you pitch. I get lots of them. It's strippedbysia.com. And there is a contact page there you can fill out. And I'd love to hear what you have to say and share. And I can work with you on developing an episode if it seems to be a right fit. So that being said, it's new episodes every single Sunday at midnight. So I will see you all for another episode next week. And I guess it's bye for now, Diana. Thank you again so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much.
You're listening to Stripped by Sia, hosted, produced, and edited by Steph Sia. Music by Ted D. Graphic design by Maria Bellanderama, and photography by Ian Dabern.